all of a sudden I have more expectations around Jackson State versus Southern Miss than I thought I would just a week ago. Oh yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day, every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, there's more dedication, more attention to detail. There's more to a Mazda vehicle as well. Stay tuned for later in the episode when the highlights come up in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. We're going to wrap up today's episode with a little bit of a MEAC whip around where we talk about Coach Jackson versus Coach Vick, Delaware State versus Norfolk State. Which one of these non-traditional coach-led teams came out looking better in week one? Segment 2, we're going to take a look at our independents because I think that Tennessee State, North Carolina A&T, and Hampton actually looked pretty solid in week one, even though of those three teams, they came out 1-2. But let's start off with the team that knocked off Hampton, and that is Jackson State. That is our defending, reigning national champions, the defending, reigning SWAC champions. They're on the path to try to repeat in both of those. If they're able to repeat as the Celebration Bowl champions, they'd be the first one to do that since A&T way back. If they were able to repeat as the SWAC champions, they'd be the first ones to do that since Jackson State, not so way back. Just a couple of years ago, they did that. So, we're looking at the path to repeating. And I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like I'm heaping a little bit of a set of unnecessary expectations on Jackson State versus Southern Miss. See, when it came to this game just a week ago, because as you're listening to this, it's Thursday morning. So if you take from the moment this is dropping to 20, or what's that? Let's do the math. 168 hours prior, I had no expectations for Jackson State versus Southern Miss. And then I watched Alabama State versus UAB. Before I go any further, let me be very clear. Jackson State is the front runner to be the Celebration Bowl champion. They are the front runner to be the SWAC champion. They should be the front runner to knock off Alabama State. But what I will say, and I gave these disclaimers because not everybody watched Monday's episode where I said that Alabama State was a championship contender. But what I'll say is this. When I walked away from Alabama State versus UAB, I walked away saying that is a SWAC contender. Do I need Jackson State to prove they're SWAC contenders? Not at all. I know that already. Matter of fact, I've already confirmed it. I don't think there's anything that could happen in this game that would change my opinion. But here's the thing. Nothing in the calendar matters with Alabama State versus Jackson State other than Alabama State versus Jackson State. But as a pundit, as someone who comes up here and he talks, as someone who is going to have conversations about what teams look like what before we get to seeing the biggest head-to-head matchups, I would like to see Jackson State ace the test that, to me, the only other contender in the conference has already aced. If they don't, I'm probably not going to sit here and be like, well, Alabama State is definitely better. I don't plan to do that. But I would like to see Jackson State ace the test that I've already seen Alabama State ace. Because when Alabama State faced Alabama Birmingham, I came here on Monday and said that's a championship contender. That was the way that I walked out of that game. I already feel this way about JSU walking in. I would like to feel even more confident in this belief walking out. You can't have the same jump as Alabama State because you're too high already, right? Like if we're talking about a ceiling of 10 and I'm at a 4 and you're at a 7, I could make a 4-point jump, get to an 8. You make a 2-point jump, you at a 9. But I can tell you this, we're going to be talking about my 4-point jump more than your 2-point jump, even though you're still ahead of me. And I hope that that analogy makes sense because that's where I feel like Alabama State was. Alabama State had a surprise factor. JSU doesn't have that. But at the same time, I need to see them ace this test. I really do, because to me, when we're comparing apples and oranges and we're comparing two things that are not the exact same, these are the type of conversations that we tend to have. They just are. And I don't think anything matters until JSU and Bama State face each other. But there's going to be a lot of things that we talk about before JSU and Bama State face each other. You know? And then even if you separate it, and I think that's unnecessary, right? There's no, Jackson State stands on its own. Jackson State is trying to make this statement on its own. Jackson State, to me, is the best HBCU team. So I think that they stand the best chance to beat an FCS or excuse me, an FBS G5 opponent. And here's the other thing. It ain't like, oh, UAB was garbage, da-da-da-da. It ain't like Southern Miss is expected to be one of the best in the Sun Belt. They're 5th in their own division. So it's not like they're one of the top flight teams in their conference either. But yeah, let's separate Alabama State. Because I still have things I want to see out of Jackson State based off of their own week 1 performance. I'd like to see Shamar Savage more than just one time. I'd like to see Joanes Fortilien. I'd like to see Nate Rembert. I'd like to see Jacoby and Morgan. I would like to see that passing attack improves. You know, and maybe it's unfair to ask for it to improve versus FBS competition. So for all of the expectations, for all of the expectations that I've just placed on this game in relation to what Alabama State was able to do, for all of that, no matter how it goes, I doubt that I'm going to change much on how I feel about Jackson. I don't think that I'm going to change much. It's not like, so I shouldn't even say I need them to do this because it's not that far. Need implies if they don't do it, then there's going to be some negative spin on this game. Not for me. Not for me. Maybe from others. I don't know. But for me, I'm going to look at it as Jackson State fell short against an FBS opponent. My expectation is that this game will be within single digits, maybe low double digits. I don't think it gets beyond 2 scores at the end of the game. I think that Jackson State's a really good team. I think that Jackson State can compete here. But at the same time, I do have certain improvements I'd like to see out of them. I would like to see the passing attack become more consistent, even if it's just short yardage throws, even if it's just chemistry, even if it's just less unforced errors. Is Ahmad Miller going to be able to do this again? We'll see. Like, these are all questions that I have about Jackson State, and it's not a lot. For some teams, I'll go in and I'll give you 4 or 5 questions. I just gave you 2. Can I see more from the passing attack? And can the phenomenal running attack do it again? That's it. So as we move forward, I'm going to take a look at our independents, you know, the HBCUs who aren't in HBCU conferences, the ones who don't get a lot of shine. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to break down Tennessee State, North Carolina A&T, and Hampton, and also a couple of teams in the MEAC, because we're going to run this whole circle that we do, and I can't get the entire MEAC in one slot. So let's go ahead and do that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Upside. Now, are you still paying full price for gas? I mean, like, sincerely, what are we doing at this point in 2025 paying full price for gas? Matter of fact, since it's 2025, if you use my limited time promo code of football and get an extra 25 cents per gallon off on your first fill up. That's just because it's 2025. So I'm going to do that for you. Take that little quarter off. It's simple. Download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Stop leaving money behind. Stop leaving cash on the table. Get it back to you. I know people who make $300 $300 a year from gas they were already buying. Imagine that, making money off of things you're already going to have. It doesn't get any simpler than that. It doesn't make any more sense than that. What are we doing? What are we waiting for? Don't let this offer drive by. Download the free Upside app now and using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL, you'll get 25 cents per gallon off. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. This is Mazda's moving the game forward, brought to you by those who believe in it. It's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. Because these moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go that extra yard, shift into that extra gear, and keep moving the game forward. Listen, even if your team lost, you got to keep moving forward, right? Let's say you went to the store, it wasn't open. Got to keep moving in your Mazda. It's simple. But let's talk about a clutch play that I didn't want to hear. And this goes to me trying to move forward. Cam Peters calls his own shot. 4th down. 2 seconds left on the clock. Calls the touchdown to beat my Texas Southern Tigers. Prairie View A&M's quarterback is the clutch player, and I know he knows how to whip the Mazda. So that's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always choosing the next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On NFL, Locked On College Football. We're here, baby. We're here. It's time. But you know what else it's time for? It's time for the INDEPEND. Oh, my God. I lost my card. Lost my Southern card. I did. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I did not just fumble the spelling of independent. I have not fumbled the spelling of independent since I was a youth. And I was so excited to do it here. We're going to blame me being under the weather. And we're not going to try again. But the point of the conversation is that I'm in disbelief. I really am. I'm in disbelief. Disappointed in myself. That's okay, though. We're going to focus on the independents. Let's get to it, guys. We're going to start off with North Carolina A&T. Independents went 1-2 this week. Now, granted, Tennessee State and North Carolina A&T faced each other. So, I mean, they had to go 1-1 at least. And it was up to Hampton to win or not. We shake back. Do you know what that means? Golly, why did I fumble that? But you know who didn't fumble? Actually, we're going to spin it. We're going to go to the winners first. You know who didn't fumble? Kendric Rhymes. Kendric Rhymes was a player who, honestly, I knew he was talented. But at the same time, I didn't expect him to bust out 200 yards. Right? Like, I didn't expect him to go that crazy where he hit 174 yards to be exact. 174 yards. Yeah. And he had 2 big-time touchdowns. So this was, for me, a huge, unexpected moment because I saw him at Southern. I think he's a good running back. I didn't expect him to come out here and be like, yeah, we're taking over and now I'm going to be the lead back and show you guys what I should have been. Because mind you, when you see players who are in a running back tandem, or in his case, a trio, and then they go solo, sometimes you get a Quavo. Sometimes you get an Offset. I'm just saying, when you leave the group, not everybody succeeds. Sometimes you are better in a triumvirate. But it's clear through one game that Kendric Rhymes feels like he can break away from the group and be Justin Timberlake. So we'll see if he can, see if that continues. But in this game, and you had to get a lot of effort from Kendric Rhymes because you didn't get much out of the air. Out of a long touchdown on a Palmer, you didn't get much through the passing game. But Rhymes gave you a 51-yard touchdown. He gave you a 60-yard touchdown. The scores came on back-to-back drives too, and that was really what's led and surged them past North Carolina A&T, where you went from being down to being up 11 points. You're down, down at the end of the third. Was it 11? Let's see if it was 11 on the dot. No, it was 10. Excuse me. You went from being down 4 to being up 10 because of 2 back-to-back touchdowns and 2 back-to-back long touchdowns early in the drive. 60 plays, 60 yards on the first play, 51 yards on the third play. Excuse me. Neither one of those drives took a minute. But that's what you got out of Tennessee State. North Carolina A&T, it was just good to see offense. That's it. I just wanted to see offense. You know, it's not as if they had never scored 21 points under Vincent Brown. It's not as if they had never had any sort of touchdowns or any kind of offensive success. But I would say that the Vincent Brown era was marked by a lack of offense. I would say that when you move away from that type of era to being in a new era under a new coach, on a coach who wants to bring back the greatness of your organization or of your university, then scoring 21 points in the opener feels a little bit different. Being in a close game in the opener feels a little bit different. Let me salute Reggie Barlow. That's my fault. Salute to Reggie Barlow for having his first victory as the Tennessee State head coach. So salute to him on that. Back to A&T, though. Coach Gibbs, he wants to bring back physicality. Obviously, I know he's not happy about allowing nearly 200 rushing yards to one person. Probably wouldn't be happy about giving up nearly 200 rushing yards, period, let alone to one guy. But his own running game, you saw some talented backs. You see Wesley Graves. He has 69 yards on 14 attempts. So you're looking at almost 5 a pop there. 1 yard away from 5 yards a pop. Jalen Hicks, 4 for 27, 6.8 a pop. Shameik Blizzard, 4 for 24, 6 yards a pop. So yes, Hicks and Blizzard are a little bit, smaller sample sizes. So that does, it kind of sways things a little bit. But Wesley Graves comes in 14, 5 yards a pop, basically. So you see talented running backs. You see guys who are going to be physical, who are going to run the rock. Lastly, as far as the independents go, you have Hampton, and I think they have a good problem. They didn't have great offense, but I will say this. I liked the quarterbacks. I did. Brendan Davis only missed 1 pass. They decided to put him back on the bench. Isaiah Freeman, I thought, was a good dual threat. I thought that he gave you a little bit of something at the end. I felt like Hampton showed good quality play, specifically towards the end. I thought that, or on the offense towards the end. And then it felt like they started shoring themselves up. Defense was locking up a really talented offense. I still believe in that receiving group. So for you to lock them up, I think says a lot. But then also I feel like you were on a good track, and then everything went downhill for you. Then Ahmad Miller say, "I'm about to run this touchdown." Then Jacoby Morgan said, "I'm gonna put it together." And then the defense says, "We're gonna go ahead and crush this." And Quincy Riley had a fantastic game. Quincy Riley did. I don't know how we haven't talked about him in the 2 days back to back that I talked about Jackson State in the first segment. But Quincy Riley, did I just call him Quincy Riley? I am in a brain fart type of mood. Y'all have to forgive me. Quincy Riley is a cornerback for the Saints. All these people want to have names that sound the same. But anyway, once we get this name, or if we don't, because it's taking too long to load. There we go. Defense. Let's see. Jackson State defense. Quincy Ivory. Forgive me. Quincy Ivory, Quincy Riley. They sound so similar. But anyway, North Carolina Central, speaking of similar, last week, they end up falling short in their in their FCS quest. They have another opportunity against Old Dominion. I don't think that there's too much to get into here, but for me, I just feel like these are the games that I'm always looking forward to out of them. So for them to fall short there, disappointing. You want to see more out of them. You get one more opportunity. It's simple, man. I think that North Carolina Central is still one of the better teams. They're still one of the teams I think we're going to have to watch out for at the end of the season. So, yeah, not much to say there, but they did fall short in their quest to knock off New Hampshire in a top flight FCS school. South Carolina State, dramatic. Next to PV, I think the most dramatic victory. And we could talk about Howard, and we will in the next segment. But to me, South Carolina State next to Prairie View A&M had the most dramatic game because we were intent on watching what they would do. Stubblefield led a last-minute game-winning touchdown. It doesn't get more dramatic than that. So there was a lot of dramatics this week. A lot of dramatics. A&T versus Tennessee State. PV versus Texas Southern. Wofford versus South Carolina State. South Carolina State versus Wofford. Right? Like, so Howard versus FAMU. There was some dramatics this week, okay? That Hampton game was dramatic for a moment, and then they kind of took off a little bit towards the end. But let's move forward to Howard. We said we we're going to talk about him. Let's go ahead and get into him as we continue and wrap up today's episode of Locked On HBCU with our MEAC whip around. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. Cam Peters, he was just like I was talking about with Mazda. There is no, in my opinion, no more clutch play in HBCU football in week one than Cam Peters going to Tremaine Jackson and saying, I want this play. And then Cam Peters delivering on that play for the game-winning touchdown as time expires with a beautiful, absolutely amazingly placed throw. At the end of the day, Prairie View A&M, I don't love to give you this honor back-to-back, but Cam Peters did what he needed to do with the last-second touchdown. And listen, we'll see if this is a fluke moving forward or is Cam Peters really this clutch. And just like Peters delivered for PV, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250. That's $250,000, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Sunday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. No more spelling for me. No more spelling for me. Just like in my 4th grade spelling bee, though I deserve a second opportunity to prove my skills, they will not give it to me for some reason. I don't understand. And yes, I'm a grown man still upset about a 4th grade spelling bee because I know who won it. I don't want to say his first and last name because I know it that much, but he does not deserve that championship. Anyway, Morgan State, shout out Eric Hunter. When you get 10 tackles, when you get a tackle for a loss or half a tackle for a loss, when you get a sack, or excuse me, no, it was a sack. Excuse me, it was a sack, half a sack for 6 yards. When you get a pass breakup, that's what you need to do when you face a team like South Alabama. I think that Eric Hunter is our premier HBCU draft prospect. I think that going into the season, there is not a singular player I'm more excited about than Eric Hunter. I think that he has a lot of the tools. I think that he has frame. I think he has range. I think he has a lot of things that you'll say, I think the league will be interested in that. But he has to put it on film in this season. He's done it before. He has to do it again in this season. He's off to a good start. South Alabama, you're facing a team that's higher competition. What do? 10 tackles. You get a half a sack. You get a pass breakup. You show your range, show your ability in coverage, show your ability to rush the passer. You show all of these traits on film. Eric Hunter is our premier NFL draft prospect, and he's showing you why every single week. I know that's a little bit dramatic. Maybe I'm just manifesting because I think he's that talented. But Let's move forward to Howard. Gritty win. Gritty win. I still didn't feel inspired. That's the difficult part, is that when it came to Howard, I still didn't feel inspired. And at the end of the day, when you win ugly, you win first. That's just the truth. Is if you win ugly, we're going to talk about the ugly, but we'll probably talk about the win first. We talked about the win on Monday. Let's talk about the ugly. I still didn't love the offense. I'm still sitting here thinking, how is Eden James a non-factor? But you know what the impact of winning is? People will tell you that Tyreek Starks made the plays when he had to. That's not wrong. I don't disagree with that. But in that game, I didn't feel like he was that good for the majority of it. And in that game, RJ Johnson made the plays when it counted. But nobody's saying, look at what RJ Johnson did at the end of the game. Look at the resilience to bounce back from a tough performance. I mean, I said it, but no one else is saying that. Instead, we're focused on the totality of performance. But when you have the plays that lead to the game-winning drive, right? Not the what would have been the game-winning drive if Tyreek Starks didn't come in and have the game-winning drive. We ain't talking about all the other stuff. Because a gritty win is still a win. You win ugly, you won first. This is what, in my opinion, you get to overshadow. But I'm still looking for a little bit more out of them. And then lastly, we'll wrap it up with back-to-back non-traditional head coaches. We have a couple of former NFL players who are here on the MEAC level now. Desean Jackson, Michael Vick. I think it's easy to say, walking out of week one, I feel better about Desean Jackson's team than I do Michael Vick's. It's just week one. It's just week one. But I don't feel like I walked away feeling good or even feeling inspired. I like that word. After week one, I wish I'd have found this earlier. Not that I didn't know what inspired meant, but I wish I would have appropriately used it. I want to walk out of week one feeling inspired. I'm going to use that when I'm talking about the Saints because they're about to go into week one on Sunday. Let's get it. You see what it is. I'm going to use the word inspired at some point. Either I felt uninspired or I felt inspired. A win would definitely have you feeling inspired. An ugly loss, uninspired. But that is my word of choice moving out of week one. From now on, every game, if it's a team that's kind of on the fence and I don't know what to feel about them. Now, if you're talking about the Bills, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Eagles, I'm not using the words inspired to talk about them. But if we're talking about teams that are kind of, bubbling around that middle or teams that were like New York, either one fits the mold. I want to walk away feeling inspired. That's it. But anyway, I didn't feel that way about Howard. I didn't feel that way about Norfolk State. I did feel that way about Delaware State. Marquise Gillis, he's the real deal. Marquise Gillis is a very dynamic runner. Marquise Gillis is a guy who I believe will be the engine for Delaware State. And when they get into the MEAC, him and Caden Bennett could be a problem. Could be a problem. And I thought Bennett showed me some good things. Obviously, he did have, I think, one turnover. At this point, it was like a week ago. But yeah, I liked what I saw from them. I did. I think that they could be a tough team. We'll see if they're going to be a top team. But I think that they could be a tough, gritty, you don't want to play them type of team. Those are the early impressions that I get from Delaware State. And then closing out with Norfolk State. Otto Coons feels like the guy. I wasn't really rolling with Coons last year. Wasn't really rolling with Coons this year. But it feels like Norfolk State might be doing their best to roll with Coons. I thought that when he entered the game, everything was a little bit smoother. Just seemed like he moved the ball better. I just thought everything felt better. That's it. Didn't blow me away. I was actually kind of disappointed. I thought Israel Carter was going to play a little bit better. But Coons just came in and it just felt like he was quicker. And sometimes backup quarterbacks tend to do that. They tend to just get the ball out quick. So then the offense tends to flow more. I've noticed that. They either are very quick or they're very gun shy. But it felt like Coons was very quick. Now, on tomorrow's episode, game of the week. Alabama State, Southern, Hornets, Jaguars. Let's get it. I think that this is going to be a measuring stick for both teams, but specifically Alabama State. Is the hype train real? I'm already building out tomorrow's episode, but you'll have to see me fill that skeleton tomorrow, 6:30. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.